All right, Chapter 6, Section 1, page 138, changes over time. If someone asks you to describe a frog, you might say that a frog has hind legs, has bulging eyes, and croaks. But what color skin would you say a frog has? Once you start to think about frogs, you realize that frogs differ in many ways. These differences set one kind of frog apart from another. The frogs in figures 1, 2, and 3 look different from each other, yet they may live in the same area. Differences among organisms. As you can see, each frog has a different characteristic that might help the frog survive. A characteristic that helps an organism survive and reproduce in its environment is called an adaptation. Adaptations may be physical, such as a long neck or striped fur, or adaptations may be behaviors that help an organism find food, protect itself, or reproduce. Living things that have the same characteristics may be members of the same species. A species is a group of organisms that can mate with one another to produce fertile offspring. For example, all strawberry poison arrow frogs are members of the same species and can mate with each other to produce more strawberry poison arrow frogs. Groups of individuals of the same species living in the same place make up a population, which we've talked about before. Do species change over time? Page 139. In a single square mile of rainforest, there may be dozens of species of frogs. Across the earth, there are millions of different species of organisms. The species that live on Earth today range from single-celled bacteria, which lack cell nuclei, to multicellular fungi, plants, and animals. Have these species always existed on Earth? Scientists think that Earth has changed a great deal during its history, and that living things have changed too. Scientists estimate that the planet is 4.6 billion years old. Since life first appeared on Earth, many species have died out, and many new species have appeared. Figure 4 shows some of the same species that have existed during Earth's history. Scientists observe that species have changed over time. They also observe that the inherited characteristics in populations change over time. Scientists think that as populations change over time, new species form. Thus, newer species descend from older species. This process, in which populations gradually change over time, is called evolution. Scientists continue to develop theories to explain exactly how evolution happens. All right, next page 140. Evidence of changes over time. Evidence that organisms have changed over time is buried within the Earth's crust. The layers are made up of different kinds of rock and soil stacked on top of each other. These layers form when sediments, particles of sand, dust, or soil, are carried by wind and water and are deposited in an orderly fashion. Older layers are deposited before newer layers and are buried deeper within Earth. Fossils. The remains or imprints of once living organisms found in layers of rock are called fossils. Examples of fossils are shown in Figure 5. Fossils can be complete organisms, parts of organisms, or just a set of footprints. Fossils usually form when a dead organism is covered by a layer of sediment. Over time, more and more sediment settles on top of the organism. Minerals in the sediment may seep into the organism and gradually replace the organism with stone. If the organism rots away completely after being covered, it may leave an imprint of itself in the rock. The fossil record. By studying fossils, scientists have made a timeline of life known as the fossil record. The fossil record organizes fossils by their estimated ages and physical similarities. Fossils found in newer layers of Earth crust tend to be similar to present-day organisms. This similarity indicates that the fossilized organisms were close relatives of present-day organisms. Fossils from older layers are less similar to present-day organisms than fossils from newer layers are. The older fossils are earlier life forms which may not exist anymore. Page 141, Evidence of Ancestry. The fossil record provides evidence about the order in which species have existed. Scientists observe that all living organisms have characteristics in common and inherit characteristics in similar ways. So, scientists think that all living species descended from common ancestors. Evidence of common ancestors can be found in fossils and in living organisms. Drawing connections. Scientists examine the fossil record to figure out the relationships between extinct and living organisms. Scientists draw models, such as the one shown in Figure 6, that illustrate their hypothesis. The short horizontal line at the top left in the diagram represents a species that lived in the past. Each branch in the diagram represents a group of organisms that descend from that species.